Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Wednesday so far. And tonight's update, we're going to be talking about our low end severe weather risk over the next few days. And then we're going to take a quick look at our area of potential development for our tropical development in the northeastern Gulf. So we'll take a look at that, but we'll quickly spend a little bit of time on our severe weather risk for the next couple of days. And then we'll kind of just to see what we can expect for the rest of the week. Starting out today on Wednesday, July 16th. And so we do have two slight risk here, one into kind of portions of Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and then kind of out to the west central United States, and around that is a large marginal risk. And so looking at our tornado risk, we do have a 2% tornado risk out here into Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, and then a 5% and 2% tornado risk into Wisconsin and then into Illinois here. And then if we look at our wind and hail risk, we do have a wind risk here, and then a hail risk for this area out here into the west central U.S. for today on Wednesday. Then going into tomorrow on Thursday, we have two areas of risk here, two marginal risk, one up into the north central U.S. and then one into the northeast, mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, southern Ohio Valley, and then kind of into the mid-south, and then kind of portions of the central U.S. for tomorrow on Thursday. We do have a 2% tornado risk here into the northeastern U.S., into New York, upstate New York, into Vermont as well, and New Hampshire. And then if we look at our wind and hail risk, we have a 5% wind risk for both of these areas. And our hail risk, we just have a 5% hail risk up here into North Dakota and Montana, once again for tomorrow on Thursday. Looking at our day 3 outlook, we just have a marginal risk at this time, a level 1 out of 5 risk into the central U.S., into southern Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota for Friday. We're looking at our radar for this evening, and starting out kind of in Colorado, we do have, and into Wyoming, we do have kind of two severe thunderstorm watches, I believe. And I believe these are two separate ones, but we have a thunderstorm watch area out here. They expire in 4 hours, and so they will expire at 10 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And we also have a couple tornado warnings out here. One tornado warned storm kind of looks like north of Akron, Colorado there. So that is what that area looks like. If you look at Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, we have two kind of severe thunderstorm watches. That one is getting ready to expire. This other one will expire at 4 hours at 12 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so we do have some storms here. Nothing really severe at this time besides this one kind of into Indiana here and central Indiana. And other than that, most of these are just special weather statements, nothing too crazy right now, besides maybe some other storms to the east, well into Pennsylvania and Virginia. But that is our look for tonight on Wednesday. And now we're going to be looking at tomorrow's storms on the HRRR model for Thursday. So this is this evening. And as you can see, that low pressure system will start to shift eastward, and you'll have some storms move into Michigan later on in the night, maybe by about 11 or 12. 11 p.m., 12 a.m. tonight into tomorrow, as well as into the central U.S. Going into Thursday morning, you have that system up here, and that will allow for a low-level jet to kind of get going. And this low-level jet, what I mean by that is it is your wind in the lower levels of the atmosphere, and this will provide spin force storms and allow them to become tornadic and potentially produce tornadoes. So that's why we have that little bit of a tornado risk tomorrow into the northeast, and we have a decent amount of instability, storm fuel in these areas, allowing for these storms to strengthen tomorrow. So keep your eye out in those areas, especially with those storms. They could be severe warned, even tornado warned at times. But if we look at the rest of the country, into the eastern U.S. We could see plenty of storms tomorrow across the Ohio Valley into the southeast and especially the deep south. And once again, we'll get to our tropical disturbance in a little bit. I know y'all are probably looking at that and wondering when I'm going to talk about that, but I will get to that, I promise, in just a little bit. But that is what we're going to be expecting, all those showers there down there in the deep south and storms from our tropical kind of disturbance area, whatever you want to call it. And then looking kind of into the western U.S. just for a moment here. Tomorrow, you're going to have probably some storms into Montana, Wyoming, either later tomorrow evening or even very early on Friday. Most likely, kind of later tomorrow evening, maybe around, I would say 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time out there. And now there are plenty of showers kind of into the southwestern U.S. for tomorrow. But other than that, that is going to be about it for tomorrow's outlook here on the HRRR weather model. Finally, looking at Friday into Saturday, pretty much here. And so we're going to be looking at the GFS weather model. So we can get quite as detailed because we are looking at the GFS and not, let's say, the HRRR model or the NAM model, just because this is a little bit farther out. But still, we can look at this to get a general idea of what will happen on Friday across these areas. But really the main thing for this day is going to be instability. You're going to have plenty of instability for storms to develop. And if you look at the 500 millibar level, which is kind of like the mid-levels of the atmosphere, we're going to have a little bit of kind of like a shortwave trough, a little bit of energy in these levels of the atmosphere. And so that is going to allow for storm development to begin later on into the evening on Friday across these areas. And I know you can't really see much, but here's some vorticity. This is our vorticity, kind of the almost energy or spin in the mid levels of the atmosphere. So that will allow for storms to get going. But by Friday evening, we're going to have plenty of instability across South Dakota, Nebraska, even Iowa, into Minnesota as well. So that will help storms to strengthen further, and you'll probably see a wind and probably hail risk out here, but nothing too crazy as far as our tornado risk goes at this time. But that is going to be a look for Friday. As we get into Saturday, we'll zoom out here into the entire U.S. sector, and by Saturday we'll probably see some storms across the Ohio Valley, Midwest, Southeast, and going into Sunday, same thing, kind of into the eastern U.S. as a whole. Nothing really going on in the western U.S. until maybe early next week, where we could see some energy kind of move its way down, and maybe another severe weather threat probably for the Dakotas, potentially early next week. And then going even further here, just plenty of moisture into the southeast, and that'll be probably a low end to maybe a low end flooding threat next week, especially if you just have continuous moisture as the GFS is showing into the southeast. But still, going further with time into next week, even into the middle and latter half of next week, just plenty of moisture hangs around in the southeast, and you'll have continuous areas of maybe weather systems or just moisture overall going into the north central U.S., even into the Great Lakes states and into the northeast. So just your kind of typical summertime thunderstorm activity day by day. But that is going to be really what we can expect for the next week, for the next upcoming weekend and next week. Now finally looking at our National Hurricane Center tropical weather outlook. And so once again, we do have this disturbance here into really the northern Gulf now, but it has a 40% chance of developing within the next 7 days and a 40% chance of developing within the next 2 days. And so this is our area here. Here's our satellite imagery, and you can't really see a whole lot right now besides just some thunderstorms and kind of high cloud tops into the deep south, but nothing too impressive really on satellite from this image at 7 p.m. And our last update was about 30 minutes ago from when I'm recording this video, so this is the most recent update. But once again, this has a 40% chance of developing within the next 2 and 7 days, and we'll look at some of the models in just one moment. So now taking a look at some of our models, and we'll look at our global models, like the GFS and European weather model. And so let me back this way up here. I do not mean to get that far out, but if you look down here into the Gulf, you can see all of our moisture, and it is not very impressive on the GFS, which is a good thing. We don't want this thing to develop at all, but we're just going to have to continue to watch it to see how it plays out, because sometimes these models can pick up well on systems, and sometimes they do not pick up as well and do not forecast as well as some of the other models, or even overall. Sometimes they just don't latch on to these systems in time. But still, looking at the GFS here, you can see all of our moisture down here into the deep south, and you're going to have a flooding threat for sure across these areas, because you're going to see rain starting especially into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, starting tonight all the way through into Friday, probably the weekend by this point. So that is going to be a problem for these areas. And if you look at the European weather model now, same thing. Here, nothing too impressive showing up, but still continued periods of rain all the way into the weekend, into Louisiana for sure, definitely southern Mississippi and Alabama, the Florida Panhandle as well. But mainly mainly Louisiana will see the most rain from this. And going to the European AI model, you can't really see this as well, but the European AI model shows a very weak low pressure here. They may try to classify this as a tropical depression if it develops even further. So tomorrow will probably be the day where we could see the most development, mainly tonight into tomorrow. But nonetheless, we're going to have to continue to watch this, and a flooding threat will be the main concern for these areas. And so finally, we'll look at some of the hurricane models and not just the global models. So if you look at the HWRF model, you can see our low pressure right here in the middle of your screen. And I know it's going to be a little hard to keep up with it because it's kind of going to bounce back and forth. So continuing this on, this gets it all the way down to about a 1011 millibar low pressure system by late, really by about 5 a.m. Or 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time, 5 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so it really doesn't strengthen it too much, thankfully. But as you can see, plenty of moisture in these areas, and that would definitely lead to a flooding risk. Going to the HMON model here, going back a little bit here. So here's our time frame here. 21Z Wednesday, which is 5 p.m. Going forward with this, gets it to a, looks like a 1010 millibar low pressure system by 2 a.m. tomorrow. So once again, I think our period for the chance for the most strengthening of this system will be late tonight into tomorrow. Once again, and then finally we'll look at the HFSA model. Same thing here. We'll go a little bit further with this, and it gets it down to, let's see, it gets it down to about a 1009 millibar low pressure system here over, and once it gets into Louisiana by about midday tomorrow. So again, as you can see, all of these models continue to show weak systems. So I wouldn't take your guard down as far as the flooding risk goes, but I just really don't see anything stronger than a tropical storm into this area. I think it's honestly going to be unlikely if we see a tropical storm. I could be wrong, but I think a tropical depression is possible with this system if it strengthens enough tonight. But I just really don't see a tropical storm developing out of this system. If it does develop, it'll be very weak. It won't be strong at all. But once again, that is all we're going to look at for the models on our system Invest 93L for tonight. Lastly, taking a look at our Weather Prediction Center excessive rainfall outlook. And so this is going to be for Friday, July 18th. And so we already have a 40% risk of excessive rainfall, which is a moderate risk here, and then a 15% risk in the yellow color, a slight risk, and then the green is a marginal risk of excessive rainfall. And so I'll go into this section here. You can see that a little bit better, the full view of that. But if we go back here and look at our 72-hour rainfall outlook, and so this begins pretty much now and lasts through Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. But if you look into these areas, especially into southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and then even into the panhandle of Florida, these areas could see well over 5 inches of rain into especially southern Louisiana, but most of these areas could see well over 1 to 2 inches of rain, and especially into Louisiana, once again seeing well over 4 and 5 inches of rain in some areas, probably 6 inches in isolated areas with this storm. So this is going to be the main threat. Once again, I know I've said that a lot, but the flooding risk is going to be a problem for sure with this system as it continues to spin over this area. But that's going to be it for tonight's update. I appreciate all of y'all watching, and I hope y'all stay safe.